It's great to be back, and it's great to see you all again, and most importantly, to pray with all of you again. And if anybody is wondering, my vacation time was absolutely A-OK, with different weather than what we've been enjoying here. Although today is like summer in Madison, if we think about it. A very interesting phrase came to the fore this week in our national life, and it's repeated over and over and over again on the news, and I think, in fact, we can use it to our advantage. I don't mean to talk about the one who presented the language to us. I don't mean in any way to talk about the source of this new language. Just the language itself and how it can work for us, especially in light of today's gospel. The phrase that I'm talking about is, "We will win the future." We will win the future. I've heard that so many times that it regularly comes forth in my memory. We will win the future. Now, from one point of view, that phrase, on the face of it, may sound inspiring, but at the same time, it's impossible to say, "We will win the future." We will win the future. What would that mean? That means we have a plan to maintain our standing as absolutely the best, and that plan will win out. How will that happen? We will do it. We will make it happen. We will win the future. That presumes that as we go about carrying out our plan, no one else is going to do anything much except stand aside. All kinds of things can happen in the world that are obstacles to carrying out a plan. Because there are all kinds of other people around, there are all kinds of other nations around, there are all kinds of freedoms around. I can remember many times, speaking of vacations, planning them, and they were well planned. And when the time came, the situation was such that I had to cancel it because of other things that other people were doing. They weren't doing those things in order to stop me from going on vacation, but they were living out their own lives, and the way in which they were living out their lives had that effect. No vacation. We will win the future? Yes, as long as no obstacles are put in our way. And we don't know about that, but in fact, it's highly unlikely. So, the truth of the matter is, in one sense, we cannot count on winning the future. That's just a truth of reason and a truth of faith. No one can ever win the future in a serious way, except for the one who has won the future once and for all finally, and that is Jesus Christ. In his crucifixion and resurrection from the dead, Jesus Christ definitively and finally won the future. It's done. The one who could win the future did it. And to say we will win the future, at best, is forgetful of how big the future is. Our future is heaven. And forgetful of the one who already won it at the cost of his precious body and blood, but in his resurrection triumphed and won the future. Whenever we hear that, we should say, we will indeed win the future, not because of a plan that we have, but because Jesus Christ has already won it, and through baptism, confirmation, the Eucharist, and the other sacraments, he has actually pulled us into his victorious body, the church. We can't really seriously say that we're going to do what Christ has already done and what only Christ would be able to do, unless we have a very small and narrow concept of the future, and one that doesn't think about the most important thing about the future, which is heaven. If we want to forget heaven, maybe we can win the future, but don't count on it. If we don't forget heaven, if our idea of the future is large enough to embrace heaven, then we can't possibly win the future. But that's okay, because Christ has won it, and he has chosen to tie us into his body, the church, so that we are guaranteed to share in that victory. Just think about the gospel, for blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who are persecuted. Blessed are you when people revile you and speak all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Blessed are you. However, when you hear that, the poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, those who are persecuted, those who are reviled, does that sound like those who win the future? In the eyes of this world, and that's the point of the second reading, they look like losers, period. The group that Jesus describes in the gospel do not sound like winners of the future from this world's point of view. They sound like the losers of all time. And the mystery of God is that in Christ, by living that way and looking that way to the world around us, we get their attention. And we show them that we are the true winners of the future, because only Christ can win the future. Christ, in fact, has won the future, and insofar as we are transformed into him, the work of winning the future is over. The work that remains is to live as Christ would have us live in the Beatitudes and look like losers in this world. That's not easy, but no cross, no resurrection. In the resurrection, there are winners in the big picture, final winners in the big picture. And thanks be to God in Christ, that's you and me. Let's go out today and every day and live with the joy in our hearts of those who, with Christ, because of his grace, we are the ones who have already won the future. Praise be Jesus Christ.